All right. Um, Thanks all for joining today's session. This is in continuous to our citizen lead automation series, and today's agenda is on Power Automate and PDF automation. So myself, Sisi, I will be taking to you through this today's session. There are a lot of hands-on. Sorry. Okay. So two hands-on we will do during our session. So stay tuned while we do a cool automation today throughout next couple of minutes, like 50 minutes. So while we speak about Power Automate scenario, what basically StudioX is offering, this is a new addition, like this is new capability being introduced with the upgraded release. If you are in 20.4, you might not be able to see this particular feature. This is being upgraded, it's available with the upgraded version, which enables us to kind of do almost most of the action which what we do in a Power Automate PowerPoint basically. So whenever there is a PowerPoint automation you do, like for example, let's say I add a slide, copy slide, add text, or maybe let's say creating a template, using a template, you're creating a PowerPoint and sending as an email and all different stuff. So this is quite possible using StudioX PowerPoint automation. So it's pretty like other use cases what we have automated so far, let's say Word or Excel or any other automation scenario. What we have done is we dragged a resource. That resource is to create a development space, and within that resource we drag our activities. Similarly, here also we got a dedicated resource, that's the PowerPoint presentation resource, and drag that resource and point to your PowerPoint file, and it will start creating a development canvas for you, where within that you can bring your different activities or actions to do the automation. Like this example, if you see here, we have a huge PowerPoint presentation resource being pointed towards a template file, and our text is being there, which is now indicated to any of the slide where it has to be done. So there are few interesting points needs to be noted. For example, whenever there is a PowerPoint automation you're doing, you must be knowing what is the area where you need to type text, or maybe where to place the content. So one easy trick is you open your PowerPoint, go to this arrange section and selection panel. This will bring all elements name or properties. So you can easily recognize which are the section where you want to type something or perform some action. We'll see this in real time in a couple of minutes. So this is a very important section where you can identify where to type, where to modify, and where to put your contents. When it comes for activities, there are a bunch of activities available, starting with, let's say, a robust one, which is if copy a data table into a slide, like you have a tabular data, you can bring that either from Excel or from a web page directly to a PowerPoint. And you can also add a file as a object, image, video, text, all these possible scenarios you can create. Some key components, like also you have exporting the PDF in PPT into PDF file. This somehow we'll do in today's use case as well. So these are all different activities. Maybe let me just switch back to a development window and show you what are the things available. How do we really do that in real time? So I assume you all joined a previous session, and then you understand how to use StudioX. But I see a few new faces, so let me just bring that quickly. So to open StudioX, just start your UiPath Studio. This is come with the same installer. This is not separate installer. Just open your web studio and change the profile. If you are using a regular RPA development, go to settings, go to license and profile page, change the environment whatever you are working. But for StudioX, we will be using UiPath StudioX. Just click on it. It will bring this lightweight no code automation screen for you, which enables us to create a task automation intended for citizen users. Now to create a simple task, what I'll do is create on this new project, blank task. Let me create today's PPT demo one. give the name and click on create. So in background, what happens is create a project directory, add some reference file and create the project structure. Okay, so my project is ready. It's adding all dependencies. Now, if you see here, a very quick overview on this one is this is my development environment, like development space where I will be able to drag and drop various activities and resources. And there are properties I need to set whenever I drag any activity. And this left panel, you see a lot of predefined set of actions available for me to build my workflow. So in case of PowerPoint, what you need to do is just go to this presentation. So there is a favorite action or activities present, which will help you to identify what all predefined components coming. So if I click on presentation, I can see the resource, which is mandatory to use before you start creating any PowerPoint automations. So first bring your resource means bring this particular on this development window. Select the PowerPoint where you want to work on so that it creates a reference and then start building a workflow. So, to do that, let's say I'll take one sample PPT, which may be saved in my desktop. Let me create a sample PPT. This is the one. So I just picked one sample PPT. So as soon as you picked it, you can give a meaningful name here. This name can be modified, like I can give my template file. These properties are important to save, like save if every time you interact with this particular PPT, you want to save the changes or create if it is not exist, and it's a template file. Sometime PPT may not be exist, so at that reference you can use template file, indicate one of the template file which can help during the development, but during implementation it can completely ignore and create on runtime. So it depends on your scenario, you can choose these properties. So, and these are the few of the activities available, like add data table to slide, add files to there are a couple of bunch of activities which are available to use. Let's do one use case, which is basically we'll try to create a PowerPoint and extract the content from a web page. So that you can understand how I'll create a PPT from a web page and save it for reference. I'll go to rpsamples.com. This is everyone can access. So within this, let's go to supplier management uh, page where you can see there is a tabular information available. Now, there are various ways to extract the content, but today I will use a different technique so that you can understand how we can use a table extractor and our entire content can be exported and write to a PPT. So with that use case, let me take you to PPT Demo 1. So first, before we write into PPT, we need to extract the content, this tabular data into one location. So to do that, what we can use is there is a table extraction. So I can use this table extraction. This is a available widget, I can say widget, which will help us to extract any structured input. It not necessarily it will be a tabular data. It can also work on any structured input and extract the content. So in our UI automation demo, this you must have used this a different way, like export to CSV, you can download and reuse. But here we'll understand how to point this one and start using. So let's say the way to extract the content, first indicate one of the element where you want to extract. For example, I say select the value. So I'm indicating on one element. If this is a structured table, by default UiPath will understand it and say, okay, this is a table, you want to extract the table. But if the development, this particular component is not a table, it was try to ask you a pattern. So that's why it's asking me select the second element, which is exactly similar, same view. So let me select one more element, which is of same category. So I say 2. Initially I selected 1 and then I select 2. So it now understand there is a pattern associated where 1, 2, 3, 4 being highlighted. So I can give a name here, ID. So this is all extracted. There are 10 rows. 10 rows are extracted. Now, in order to extract other column, let's say I select external name. Again, it will ask me to select the next one. So I select the second pattern. It says the external name. So take export all external name areas. Suppose I want to extract few more. Let me just select industry. Second pattern. And as I said, if it is a true table, like true table meaning if this is development is done on top of a HTML table, your path can understand there is a the robot will understand there is a table attached and will extract directly. But here there is no table attached, so it is asking for pattern. So just to click on next and finish. Now suppose we are not extracted this supplier, that's okay. So we extracted three component. It's asking if this is split into multiple pages. There are scenarios where you have seen tables are split into page 1, page 2, page 3 and all pages. So in that scenario also it can be continue to next page, but here there is no page. So we can go where saying, okay, there is no page attached. Now that the structure is created by default. So where I started with table extraction. So StudioX is able to understand there is a browser interaction happens and brings that entire URL here. And also it is created that widget or the actions what will help to extract the table content. Now one of the field I need to set here is extract to what. So you see this extract to field is blank. So it extract to what content is we need to save. This extraction can be done to many places. Like I can save this into Excel and then future maybe I read it again. But if it is just a temporary value, which no need to save into some places, but only for reference you need to save, then use save for later use. I can say here this is a table details. I'm just giving some name. So I given a meaningful name to save my content into a temporary variable. But same way, you can also write into Excel file or directly to some other location as well. So this is the first place where we extract the content saved into a variable called as a temporary variable for future reference. Now, suppose we want to add this into a PPT, so right? So let's create a sample PPT. Supplier, I'll give a supplier PPT. So let me create a supplier PPT. Now this will be blank. There will be no slide. So ensure there is a slide attached and you give a meaningful name somewhere. So this is the area I was explaining. You need to understand all the names, how it is defined. So let's say this is one text box, then another text box. So to see the names properly, so you go to this home arrange section and click on the selection panel. So how I move here, selection panel. Now you can see these names, and these names can also be modifiable. Like I can rename it to some meaningful. So I want to give a different name. I can give here as well, like header one. So you can give these template names, and this is always available to refer. And the moment you click on any of this text box, the respective section got highlighted. So if I click on this, the second section got highlighted. So this is important while you are creating any PPT automation. So go to home, click on arrange and then selection panel. If you want to remove it, just re-click it again. So this is our supplier PPT. Let's see how to interact with this. So this is one section is closed. So let me go here. And as we just discussed, in order to use any PowerPoint, what we need to do, bring this particular PowerPoint presentation, select the file where you want to operate. So we created this supplier PPT. That's the file we want to operate on. Here is important to rename as per best practice. I can create supplier PPT template. Okay, so this is suppose I want to override this file anytime we need to run. So I can do save change and then recreate if not exist. Now we have to add the data table what we created here. That's a table of data, right? So into a slide. So bring your add data table to slide, and that brings different options to select, like any other actions in StudioX. Here also you have to select from this little icon what we need to do. So as this name suggests here, presentation is nothing but the one what I have selected given the reference. This is right. Slide, there are only one slide. So if you move your mouse on this section, you will be able to see it will by default come out of box from the tool to choose. So which slide to take. So we have only one slide, so I selected that one. The content placeholder is something where we need to type, right? Where is the content will go? So in presentation, there are two contents, and if you recollect, this one is a name I give from the selection panel, and this was out of box name. So we decided to put it in subtitle 2, which is second line, so to add there. So select that, and in a bigger implementation, suppose you have a very complex PowerPoint, you can bring first of all you can create a template, give a meaningful name, so that this organizing this entire stuff will be much easier. Now, what table to add? This is the section where we want to use what we extracted to reuse under this particular section. So click on this plus. There is an option use saved value. So you can use that value what we have saved before. And this is the name we have given, table details. So that's all. So now I've created a PPT, linked the PPT to this PowerPoint resource, and then our data table into a slide and indicated all the values, including the references what we saved on top. The workflow is ready. To run it, just go here, click on run. Now it will go to this particular web page, extract the content, and type into that. So this is on the web page now. Let's type into all the section. So the once execution is completed, you can see this execution log on top saying successfully run or it failed. And also you can go to output panel to see what actions being performed. For example, it started browser interaction, then it extracted the data from this particular web page, and then add the content into this PPT, which took only 8 seconds. So let's see the output. So this is our output file. So it takes the default formatting of the table as part of out of box in what is their default configure in PPT. So it picks that format and write the content. Here also you can add some text, which is we will just explore that. So any question on this so far? I hope this is simple and understood. Feel free to raise your question to make it more interactive. Okay. And I see Nidhi also joining the call. Thanks, Nidhi, for joining. And okay, so to move on, now what we'll do, we'll also see few of these activities or actions available. And finally, we'll go to a demo where it's pretty interesting. We'll create a certificate automation. Like today, whoever joined, like in our citizen program, suppose you want to distribute a certificate on this, how do you do? We'll do that session exercise as well. So before that, I would like to show you different functions, what is available here. There's some common scenarios, like I want to add a text to a slide. So like we just explained, here there should be a text, let's say supplier. How do you add that? So to add that, let's say add text to a slide. So I can bring here, add text to the slide and select on the same presentation. See, let's say in this scenario, it's not prompting me any option. I did a small mistake. Can anyone tell me what I did here wrong? So I'm not able to see my presentation. I bring the add text to slide action over here. Ideally, in the normal scenario, the presentation should show me the presentation reference, and this would be slide reference. Something should come, but I don't see anything here. What mistake I have done? This is a small mistake I performed here. Any guess? Okay, so any thought around, maybe anyone want to try it to sure? Okay, you are with me. Okay, I see some chat window. Let's see. Awesome. So that answers are correct. Uh, This is absolutely right. Thanks for answering. I put this add text to slide action outside of okay, yeah. So yeah, there are a few answers are correct, and you're partially true. So see, this add text to slide is an action which is part of PowerPoint. If you see the structure, add text to slide action, or we call activities, is outside of this resource. That means if I just minimize this section, you will be able to see the way it is organized. This is my browser resource. That means all browser activities are wrapped inside this. This is PowerPoint resource. Different PowerPoint activities are wrapped inside this. But if you see this one, it is not floating with any of the resources independently floating. So there is no container for this. That's why it's not showing me the right option. To bring the right option, we need to align these actions within the right resource. So for this, the right resource is PowerPoint. Now, if you see, I bring that within this particular resource. That's the resource option. Now, if you click on this plus, this option appears. This is the presentation. Click on this, it brings the slide, which slide to do. Content placeholder is nothing but your header. Here, this is the place we want to add text. What text do we want to place? Let's say we want to place supplier. Oh no, double quote. Okay. So I just put some text over here. And this is my previously performed action. So in order to comment it, I can press Control D, or else you can put right click, disable this activity. This will comment it out. Just to show you one functionality, I'll just bring this. But in continuous, you can create a template file, no save change. So it's all will continuously perform. So hope that is clear. So any actions you are performing, no matter it is a PowerPoint or any correlated, let's say Excel, CSV app. So all this, make sure activities or actions are placed at the right place. Otherwise, it will not show you the options. And then immediately you see, for example, there could be scenario where the above reference is not accessible to below reference. That is also because of the resources are not placed within each other. Then the data transfer will not be available immediately. Only if you are using saved for your future reference, those are the sections it will be available, but otherwise the resources are not going to be accessible. So make sure it is placed in the right way so that you can take advantage of reusing those values within each other. Okay, so to run this again, so what we have done, just a quick recap. We have used a add text to slide, given some option like select PowerPoint, select the number, click on this and which section. This is the name we have given header, and this is the text of what to type. To run this again, just click on run. That's all. So it modified the text to supplier. And based on the template, whatever the structure you have defined, this will appear as is. So that is one key feature. Like you can add text. Sometimes if the text are not empty, for example, you have a text. Yes, I have a text here, which is, let's say, date. It's already defined, and you want to replace this particular text on runtime, but not a content placeholder. At that time, also you can use this replace text with presentation. So you can indicate what text to find within that. Basically, template will come like this, right? So you want to find this particular placeholders, what we can call as placeholder, define what to find what, and give this particular placeholder saying I want to find this and replace with what value. So those can be done, and there is options as well like match case, hold word only, and all. So sometimes if your templates are with text where it is not empty, at that time you can take advantage of replace text. If it is empty, you can go by add text directly by using this arrange and selection panel. If you not go by that option, like for example, if I try to add text on top of this, sometime it can go by concatenation, like it will start writing text on top of that date. It will not remove that particular option. So sometimes you might need to replace it with some new value, then go by that replace component. Otherwise it will do concat. I'll show you a quick demo so that you can understand. So let's say I want to add a text. I'll do both the scenarios so that you can correlate. So let me just clean up a bit. So what we discuss is we want to add the date component on this. Suppose I want earlier scenario, if you use add text to slide, what you need to do, bring that add text to slide, select the slide number, placeholder this time. In order to clarify the placeholder name, you can go here, selection panel, it was open. Click on this, it is text box 2. Suppose I want to modify this to date. I modify it to date so that I can refer it correctly. Come here, content placeholder presentation slide. See, it is appearing by default. This is date. So here again, so we need to add today's date, assume. So to add today's date, we did this exercise before. Like, can anyone tell me how to get today's date into this particular text box? Any guess? Suppose we want to add today's date here. Any guess? I'll just wait for 15 seconds. How to bring today's date to this placeholder? Forget about placeholder. How to bring today's date? I cannot type it hard coded, right? 1503. It will be. It's not correct. Like I think today 1603. This is not correct. How to bring dynamically today's date? Oh, Rajesh, you are using class, a very tough word in strategy and automation. No, no technical terms. No. Yeah. So, oh, that's the answer. Nidhi got the right answer. So we need to use notebook. You need to take advantage of notebook. There was a dedicated session we did on notebook where if you see a notebook is nothing but a reference file. So just to clarify that, let me bring that window. So if you go to your project files, whenever you are creating a project, it's creating a notebook XLX, which is a kind of config file for you. Always refer this config file, which might helps a lot, right? So there are a lot of pre-built formulas are already there, which can help to answer many things. For example, let's say this is a date sheet. If you see, uh, these are all dates already defined. Like maybe you can directly write it as your technical, but some may not know how to write this, or there is a split. Like I want to know the dates and all. So if you see, these are all predefined formulas to bring that capability of reusing certain stuff. See here also you have a text split, but you just need to type some text. It will split all these values. It will show you what details are there. Even you have a number formatting, it will do all this stuff. So here in the date section, we have this today's date here available. This today's date prefer format, whatever you want to set, you can set it, will come here. So we'll take advantage of that to bring normally the today's date scenario. So how to do? Go to this particular plus. Project notebook is available by default to every activities because it's part of your default resource. Click on project notebook. Which sheet we need to refer? Date sheet. What value you want to pick? Today's date. So see if there is a, yeah, today's date is there. If I run it, as I said, we are not replacing any text, but we are just trying to add content into this particular one. So if I run this one, this let me show you. So it will now open this file, extract the content from that today's date cell, and type it into this. Read that content and type into that section. So if you saw, we have a placeholder, but rather it fetched today's date and type concatenated this one, which is not the ideal scenario we would be looking for normally, right? So we uh, would like to replace this particular scenario because this is a template. Sometimes the template might come with default values as a placeholder. So those scenario, what you can do, you can use this replace text, find what you want to text. So find is like I want to find what and replace with today's date. So in this scenario, what I've used, replace text presentation and then select give the details what I want to search, the placeholder name, and then with what I need to replace. Now let's run this. We already saw that it did quickly. So the placeholder is replaced. So that's how you need to decide based on the template type which contents to pick, like which activity to use. Otherwise, it will start behaving weird. So this is how there are key elements to use. Like sometimes you also need to attach or add an object, right? We generally add some documents to PPT. So this time also you can use this add files to slide. It's bring that object directly. For example, I say I want to bring a uh, let's say PDF document. Bring a PDF file. Content placeholder is, let's say I have again I'll use a date for reference. I want to bring that some attachment to that location. So which file to pick? You can either make it dynamic, like I want to make it little dynamic to select, or else you can select a default file as well. So I say this time I selected a default file, and some label you can give as invoice. Okay, so in this scenario, what we have done, we have tried to attach a PDF file into this PowerPoint scenario. So generally, we do that in our scenario, add objects, right? So we bring any object to this location. So we do that particular place. So let me run this one. So what it will do? It will bring that PDF document and attach into your PPT on that location with a label called invoice. PDF is available as an object. So I'm just showing you some common scenario what we are using in day-to-day regular operation. Okay, so with that, almost majority of the section I have touched. Few other stuff you can practice, like create a new slide. Even if you create a new slide, you can save the reference, and that same reference can further be utilized into next section. Like I can refer the same, save the reference number. You can use a reference number and use it, and create art, video, and image can also be possible through this. This is the list of PowerPoint presentation activity. Now let me move to the next use case, which is on creating a certificate. That's pretty cool use case. Okay, so I saw a note. Is the date field notebook get updated automatically? It is, because the notebook date field is a formula. It's Excel formula. In Excel, you can get today's date by equals to today. So that's a formula-driven config file. It's get automatically updated. So tomorrow you'll open, it will have tomorrow's date, right? So it's not a hard-coded based. There are a lot of formulas being there, which is normally our Excel supported formulas. Okay. So let me explain the next use case. Before this session, what I have done is I've created a Excel file where I've saved my colleagues who are supporting me on this uh, event. So like I've given my name, Nidhi Viewer, and just to avoid any email spam, so I just given my email ID over here. So what we'll do, let's say there is a event and we get this type of list where who are registered and what are the email address, which is very common to get it from a registration list. And I've also created a certificate template. Let me see. Let me correct the. Okay, so I've created a certificate template, which is just a certificate of participation in citizen-led automation, and we have for your participation, whatever the default text to write, and some community logo and the word. There are certain hidden section also here. For example, let me go to, as I said, always go to arrange, see the section to understand the structure. So this is a text box. Here we want to add this a name, and there is another structure here where we want to put date. So that will be the final structure we want to add. Either I would have added here as well the placeholder, but as this scenario I've not added a placeholder so that I can use add text. So this is the certificate template. and we have a list of name. Let's create a project. Let me create a blank project. So I will call this as certificate distributed bot. And then save. Okay. So if you see the if you can visualize on top of mind, like the steps involved in this particular exercise is basically we will read the Excel file. For each Excel row, we will create a certificate. Certificate definitely we don't receive in PPT version, we receive in PDF. So we'll create a PDF version of it, and then I'll try to send it over email as an attachment, and then iterate that same exercise over and over again. So that's the way we I just mentioned the same way I will automate. So I first I said as I'll read the Excel file. So to read the Excel file, we need to bring the right resource. So I bring the right Excel resource over here. Now I'll choose the Excel file where I have all the names mentioned, right? So all details I saved into my desktop. As part of best practice, you can save it to a one repository, like create a separate folder, save it, all these things. So I'm just going ahead with the default one. So I saved into name.xlx. Here, I'll say register Excel, some meaningful name, Excel registration list. Or else I can give only registration list. Okay, so this is the file where I've given a name called registration list for future reference, and I'll start reading. So it create the container for that Excel. Now, the next action I said is we will iterate over each row of that particular Excel so that we can perform some required action. So what we'll do now for each row, that means we will definitely search for something which is loop. So for each, here is that for each Excel sheet, for each folder, and for each Excel row. So we'll bring that for each Excel row. So because we want to perform something on each Excel row, which brings some default value like current row for reference and where I want to operate on. This is a registration list of seat one. Seat one is having all the name and email address. So I just did that saying, okay, name and email address, and let me reopen that Excel to see if it is what details I have it. Just to quickly show you this Excel file. So I have the Excel. This is the name, this is the email, and these are the details. Okay, so now it has header, so I saved it like it has a header, and for each is reference under current row. Now we have reference for each row for this particular Excel, and we can always refer this name and email address from current row of name, current row of email. Now we need to use the PowerPoint presentation slide to create a certificate. So for that, what we need to do, go to presentation, bring your use PowerPoint presentation resource, which is necessary to uh, before you could do any certificate or before you interact with any PPT, you need to bring this resource. Let me select, choose that particular file. So this is my certificate template. So I just selected that container to bring that window here. So now we have a space where we can interact with that certificate template. So this is with the reference called PowerPoint. I'll leave it as is, but it can also be modified. Here, I don't want to change any content because this is just a PPT, right? So I don't want to modify any content over here, but rather just use this as a reference. So that's why I've removed save change because I don't want to modify the template. Same way this is create, I just remove because there is a template already saved. If I do this save change, what will happen is it will start modifying my original template, so which I want to defer. Now let's add text, which we need to do for PPT. So I'll just select add text to slide. So there are two texts we'll add as we discuss. So one is PowerPoint is coming from this reference. Slide is nothing but we have only one slide. Content placeholder, this will go to name. So we've given an reference here by modifying on the arrange panel, if you recollect. So name is appearing, so it is simple. And what text to write? As you can correlate, the text is definitely going to be current row of name because we're iterating on each row of that particular Excel sheet. So current row is having a reference for each row, and we are given the name as a field. So this is for name. Similarly, as I said, we'll put a placeholder for date. So same way, our text slide number is presentation of slide 1. Content placeholder is going to be my date placeholder. And in previous exercise, we did how to get today's date is reference date of today's date. So that will bring my today's date into the particular content. That's all. Now we have done the required changes, like add all the required text in the PPT. Now we need to save this PPT as a PDF. So let's remove this. Go to PPT and see. There is an option called Save Presentation as PDF. Okay, so now this particular point comes like this is my PowerPoint. I want to save this into PDF version. So what we'll do with the preferred name. So I've given the name of same person what is part of Excel. So the name of the file we need to indicate here. So name is nothing but the same person name. So I've just created that. So and if it is duplicate, it'll replace that same file. So it's a PDF. The extension will add automatically. So just need to indicate what name to give. So far we have done all required steps like read the Excel and then iterate on each line of the Excel sheet so that we come across all the names. Use a PowerPoint template so that we can add all the required fields there, like add text for the name and the date, and then save that details into a PPT. As of now, I'll just run it to see how it is running, but we can also take that an action item to see how to send over email as well. So let me run this Ajit. So I just need to start. If you see, if you it start, that means that this Excel will come. So if you see this, this one is created already. Like it started from putting all the names, date. See, this execution completed with successfully, and your output may be showing here. It took only 15 seconds for publishing, and I can see that details as well. It's basically we saved into a default location. I've not given way to save in very long path. That means it will be saved into current location. So if I go to the project file, I can see all this, uh, all the certificates created for thank you for participating and all, and we have it all defined. Now to send email, that can be further be done like simple. Use Outlook activities over here. Select your default account, whatever is configured, and then send email for each of that. Suppose I want to send that attachment or email, then you know that this attachment is saved with your current role name reference. So we can select that particular file, but here we need to add a .pdf because this is just a name, so it will not have understanding of the extension. So you need to add .pdf here so that it has a reference, and whichever the email address you want to put, that means the email address are over here. So you say this is the email where it has to send the email, the current row. Okay, and then suppose you want to add some CC and all certificate of participation, you can add UI path. Okay, so I've just created, and then suppose there is a fancy body you want to add, all this can be done. So like we can customize it as and when we need. Fine, that as well. I'm showing you how do you define this, and this is again within that same loop. So what will happen is it will start writing the text, create the PDF, send the PDF to the user because we have configured it dynamically saying send it to the email address of the current row, and this is running over iteration. So this is how simple we created a certificate distribution model in just less than 10 minutes, I guess. So hope it is clear. Any question or comment, any doubt on this one? I see this is a very common use case you must be facing in your organization to whenever there is an event. Okay, so I wait for 10 seconds if there's any question or comment. All right, now we'll move on to the next section. That will be a pretty quick one. So what we have done is so far understand the PPT as well as how to create a PDF on it. But there are scenarios where you might need to interact with PDF, but we do not have any out of box PDF activities attached to StudioX. But still, there are scenarios where you can do still the automation using a default app and web automation activities resource. Let me show you a quick demo on that. So I've just removed whatever I coded here, clean up my development canvas. So let's say I have a sample PPT, right? So PDF, and I should have some test. Okay, test PDF. So you want to do some test PDF. So if in case you want to do some operation on this, the indication to a PDF may not be very lot of out of box here, but still there are certain small automation you can achieve. For example, to automate any PDF, the approach is bring your application and browser resource, indicate on that particular PDF file. So now to switch, I'll just press F2. F2 is basically delay my activities studio recorder so that I can perform some manual action. Now this window appears. I want to indicate that. So you see how the properties are set. Now it is now indicated to a Acrobat, which is required in terms of reading a PDF, and it has no argument. The way it will work is we need to provide an argument where you want to operate on a PDF file. Let's say this is my test PDF. It should be available in any of my path. Let's say I'll just go here. In this one, I'll save it to a location so that I can test PDF. So I saved into a desktop. Now this is my test PDF. If you see the property details, this is in desktop. So you can always copy the path which needs to be referred into that section. So I go here and define an argument. That's nothing but where your PDF is saved. So I can give this as my argument, test PDF. Now, if you see here, the UiPath will understand this is a path of some location, so it will change it to desktop. See, this name, username got pressed, so it's a dynamic value. We get same workflow will work on any other user desktop as well. That's why it's make it dynamic. Now, this is how we modify Acrobat and make a test PDF run. And if you want to extract some content, so you can use get text from PDF and indicate what exactly the text you want to extract, and it will start asking, okay, if there is any reference file to pick and all. So let's say I don't have any reference. In normal scenario, you will have invoice and all that is possible. And here you want to say, let's say, save this reference into some future reference variable. I saved it for future reference. Click on plus use saved value. This also can be done to clipboard, or maybe you can write into Excel file, and all this is possible. And bring a message box window to this particular variable. I want just to bring. So what we have done, we bring a Acrobat automatically this path selected. If you're already aware, you can always give this path using this text window. But if you are not aware of the path, just bring any sample PDF, indicate on that, the path will auto appear on this. The responsibility what we need to do is bring that particular path of the PDF into this, then only the Acrobat will understand you want to work on top of which PDF file, and then perform the required action on this to whatever you want to do. So to run it, just click on run. What will happen is it will start bringing that test PDF on screen, and then read the PDF file. I have a sample invoice. I'll just show you one sample invoice scenario. How do we reference to invoice text and all? Let me close the PDF and run it again. So we can see if it is operate on that PDF or where it went. See, maybe it's not able to locate my PDF. I must have done some mistake. It's not test PDF, the text is different. That's why it's not working. The name I've given is wrong. So let me correct that name. And this is the name. Now it should work. So it will go to Acrobat, open that PDF file. See, this is open. And I'll try to read this header and prompt me. But that's not a normal use case. The normal use case which it can accommodate is on reading some text, but not very extensive PDF operation may not be possible because it's not coming out of box. There is one scenario which is just a tip which can be used. For example, in your organization, suppose there is a PDF version where there is OCR and other stuff is used. What you can do, you can give the StudioX project to a regular RPA developer team. They will integrate your PDF into that, and they'll give you this back into StudioX version. So if you reopen that in StudioX, those built-in capability can be reused here, like OCR text and all, which is can be developed in Studio and then reused in StudioX, but you cannot directly integrate into this. Okay, so maybe the reference we have not selected correctly. Let me just adjust that reference to show you why how it will work. Here I'll indicate it again. This is what I want to read. I don't have a sample reference. Maybe I'll check this one. This might place it correct and run it. And you have all similar options like other use cases, open if it is closed, and all these scenarios. It's still running. It's behaving weird to me today. Let me bring the invoice one. That way we can simulate the right scenario. So we have I have a simple invoice as well. Same way I will follow, like use application resource, sample invoice, summarize, saved sample, yeah, this one. The sample PDF invoice. Here there is no text, but rather at least we have a label and all structure. So let me just indicate the same concept, indicate on the PDF. I'll give the path, the way I pick the particular path, like sample PDF. And say get text and to extract this invoice number text with the label invoice. Okay. I don't have text, but this is just a template to see how it is working. Now, whatever the details I got, you can just run it through as a sample reference. invoice number. To print the value or to output screen, you can always use message box. And to print the value, just select use saved reference and done. We'll just run this and see how it extract, either it is able to extract or not. Yeah, for some reason it is taking a long time on my screen with PDF interaction. But yeah, this is the only way we have to extract the content. I'm sure the reason it's not working now is because of the UI selection. We have to tweak the selectors and it worked after that. That's the areas we need to check. Yep, I'll not waste time on this, but just a tip, the why it's working not working is because of our selectors needs to be optimized, then it will work. There could be some intermediate cause, but the way you interact with PDF is using this default Acrobat today. But the tip, as I just mentioned, the tip is just to ensure you bring the robust capability with Studio and then share that code again back to citizen user to reuse that, because they can reuse those components what you have done and then hand over them to tech. Okay, so with that, is there any other questions, comment? Okay, so you want me to explain what OCR and all, right? So what happened is today, if you see in StudioX, we do not have out-of-box functionality to bring your OCR and PDF complex PDF actions, but there are scenarios which is available through our studio. So what you can do, suppose in your use case, these capabilities are required, you give your StudioX project to your COA team who are responsible for studio development. They will add that flavor of complex PDF automation, suppose OCR capability, and you can bring that code back to citizen user machine and reopen it and start using. In that way, you can achieve your OCR capability in StudioX, because it might not available out of box, and there are certain complex like try catch and other exception handling which required. The regular automation development team can do it, and then they can hand over back by tweaking it to you as a reusable library. In that way, it is achievable for regular automation. Hope that answers Andrew. Any other question, comment? I hope you find today's session useful, where we did a couple of cool use cases. You might bring that, use that in your regular task automation in your day-to-day activities. There is a question, what is my version? I'm using 20.4 Enterprise Edition. So even in the beginning, I mentioned that maybe some of activities may not be listed in your studio if you have not upgraded. Make sure you upgrade to get advantage of this presentation, PPT version, SAP and other stuff. Otherwise, it will, in the older version, that is 20.4, these features are not there. So upgrade it to 20.10, higher than 20.10. So you get all this advanced feature in your StudioX. So they said my version is 20.10.4. Yeah. Okay, so feel free to raise any other question. I've completed this, and we have one more session which is on driving citizen automation at scale. We will understand few more best practices, standards, reporting, dashboard, and other stuff while you are driving this citizen automation in industry. What all common best practice needs to be followed. That would be our last session of this entire series. So if you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe to that and RSVP to that event which is happening is tomorrow. That would be the last one to learn a lot into that. And this is a dedicated training created for PPT on our Academy. So you can log into Academy and enroll for this PPT. You will get a similar view and also a practical hands-on working session. If there are no other questions, then we are good to close today's session. Thanks all for joining in. Catch you tomorrow.
Thank you for a wonderful session, Sushira.
Thank you.